Welcome to episode number 11 of the Men and Community Podcast. On this week's episode, Matt and Carlo discuss the importance of learning new skills. Matt talks about giving yourself the opportunity to improve. Carlo explores the double-edged nature of perfectionism, and together they define what it means to actually master a skill. Thank you for being part of our community. All right, let's dive into it. This is going to be episode number 11, I think. Episode number 11, which is super exciting. We're this close to the teens. We're almost a teenager podcast.
I love it. Just in time. Are we going to start getting really angsty?
I was about to say that. Yeah, totally. Very angsty.
Beautiful.
Like, I feel like that was a couple episodes ago.
That's true. We did have an angsty
We had
episode.
an angsty, woe is me kind of episode already. So, anyways.
Evanescence playing in the background.
Oh, I couldn't get the licensing rights.
No.
All right. So, this episode, I think is going to be a fun one. I'm excited to talk about it. But it's about the concept of learning and mastering new skills. And, this wasn't one that I think we had really done much pre-planning or thought to do. But as soon as you said it, it was like, yes, I'm in. I can talk about this one. It's kind of like the AI one we did a couple episodes ago. So I'm super excited to get into it. But before we do that, let's do our cards.
Absolutely.
You go first.
What is the ugliest part of getting old? The ugliest part of getting old. I think for me, the ugliest part of getting old would be the feeling that you aren't capable of the things that you used to be capable of. And I think that would be relative to, whether it's even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, obviously whatever everyone's relative age is now. But yeah, I think the ugliest part of getting old for me would be the shot to the ego of not being able to do what I used to do.
Uh-huh.
Am I showing too much cleavage?
Like, yes, but I'm more thinking with the microphone.
Always thinking about the microphone, never thinking about my cleavage.
Sorry. Like, I look at it all the time.
Not no more.
Sorry, ladies. Yes, and I think almost... Did it use the word unfortunate? Ugliest. I think ugliest and scariest for me are interchangeable in this question. Because like you said, not being able to do things like you could before. For me, I think about the physicality of it all, mobility in specific, when I think about getting older.
Yeah.
Because as we've talked about in other episodes, I was able to reclaim a lot of my fitness and my ability to do things. We actually had a moment today where I even made that comment to you about how happy I was that I was able to do something. But the idea of growing older and losing that ability, losing the ability to care for yourself, losing the ability to, be physically active, to, run around, play sports, all that kind of thing, that really terrifies me. And I actually saw something the other day. There was an article that said if you are under the age of 50 now, you will likely live to be about 130. Just with all the medical advances that we have coming our way and that we have had in the last little while, which is exciting to think we will live that long, but we don't know what the quality of life will be for that length of time. We don't know what the financial implications will be. We don't know what the physical and mobility and ability, like, does it mean there's going to be thousands of people over the age of 100 for 30 years that are clinging to life in an old folks home? Or does it mean that we're going to be able to, be healthy and active until, we're 120 and then for that last 10 years? Nobody really knows. So I have always made it a personal mission of mine to do everything that I can to never be feeble, never not be able to take care of myself, right? And who knows what life will throw at me, but if it means that I have to spend some time in the gym now to, and develop that lifestyle now so that when I'm 80, 90, I'm still able to live a great life, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What celebrity are you embarrassed to find attractive? You know who I'm not embarrassed to find attractive?
Your high school teacher, that one that you... Never mind.
No.
That's episode 10.
Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, hell yeah.
What a handsome, funny Vancouverite.
See, I'm in a different... similar sort of thing. Like, big Will Smith guy, but also Shamar Moore. Do you know Shamar Moore, if I was telling you that?
I'm sure if I saw him, I would recognize him.
Criminal Minds, SWAT.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But got his start on Young and the Restless, which I am embarrassed to say that I watched with my mom as a kid.
No, you're not.
A little bit. I think that's where I got my, like, delicate sense of, like, empathy.
And the dramaticism. Okay, anyways.
Oh, I don't get to take Shamar Moore? Okay.
No, you can.
Who am I embarrassed to think that I find attractive? There are a lot of celebrities into their 50s that are still remarkably stunning. And I don't know whether it's embarrassing in and of itself, like to think that the Mariah Careys of the world are still very attractive, but more of a comment of like, I'm getting old enough where I can appreciate that someone in their like 50s is attractive is kind of like what I'm still coming to terms with kind of as a general theme.
Yeah, it's not the 18, 19, 20-year-old music pop star that's wearing no clothing in her music videos that you're attracted to anymore. It's that, accomplished professional actress, musician or
who's
whatever.
also wearing no clothes.
They're wearing tasteful clothes.
Tasteful no clothes.
Okay.
Go back and watch the Super Bowl with Mary J. Blige. That lady is definitely in her 50s, and she is wearing like much more bootylicious shorts than most women, I think, in that stage of life would be comfortable wearing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, like I don't have a celebrity that I would be ashamed or embarrassed to say I'm attracted to. Attraction is attraction. Like, you don't really control it. And I think if you're attracted to somebody, it's because they have a value that you like. And I think that's cool. Why fight it? So yeah, I'm not embarrassed of any of them. There's a lot of attractive women and a lot of attractive men, and
some just have better shoulders and calves than others.
That's right. All the shoulders, baby. All the shoulders. All right, let's change the subject. All right. So what we're talking about today is the idea of learning and mastering a new skill. And I learned the importance of this probably, I want to say last year was when it was really driven home for me. Because I think without exploring learning how to do new things, you get stuck in a rut of life, right? So for me, what it was is that I actually set out to do a 50-day long challenge that had a whole bunch of things associated with it. But one of them was that every single day you would spend an hour committed to learning a new skill or working on a project. So for every day, for 50 days, I set an hour aside and I did that. And I couldn't go to bed until it was done. And often what I found was that I would start that hour and I was so engrossed in it and happy to be doing it that I never really stopped unless I had to do some other responsibility. And what I actually taught myself to do beginning to end was 3D model. I bought a 3D printer in 2021, and that was an amazing skill set to learn, but I was tired of having to take the designs of other people and being like, well, that's 90% of what I want, but I don't know how to adjust it the other 10%. So I set out to learn a program, and so that I can now adjust and make these models and make my own creations, right? And it was immensely empowering to know that I could, follow a YouTube tutorial and through trial and error do these kinds of things. And my sister said something to me the other day that I actually haven't told you about that I thought was so cool. And she goes, Carlo, the life that you live is a life that other people would want to live. And I was like, well, expand on that. What do you mean? And she's like, well, think about it. You work a career that you're passionate about. You're healthy. You go out and you do things that you enjoy. you live in a nice home, you drive a nice car, and you do things that people would be interested in learning how to do. And she was referring to the modeling and the printing, because that was what we had just talked about. And she was actually encouraging me to like maybe start another social media channel of doing these kinds of things, which is something I've been exploring. And I thought that was so cool, because this was something that I had no experience on how to do. Like 3D modeling was something so outside of my scope, I didn't even know where to start. And now, a year later, I am at a skill set level that I could, in theory, teach other people to do what I do. So it was immensely empowering to me, and it took away a lot of the monotony of just regular life, knowing that I was improving and becoming better and learning something that yesterday Carlo didn't know how to do. Right? So for me, that's why learning a new skill set is so important. And I'll talk a little bit later about why I think mastery is a double-edged sword. But for me, that's why learning a new skill is so important. What's your thoughts on learning skills?
Yeah, I think that learning skills for me just becomes a really important practical application of curiosity. And one of the things that I really, really value is a sense of curiosity in everything that I'm doing. And that goes to how I interact with people. It speaks to how I do my work and explore my career. And it's this practical way to demonstrate that I've been curious about a thing. And then there's the tangible results, which is the skill that I'm actually dedicating myself to doing. Now, I find, for me, I think what I've been really working on and through learning has been this. It's been our podcast, and it's been something that very, very different. I do a lot of speaking professionally, and I had to learn a lot over the pandemic to transition my speaking business to being virtual. And so, of course, the microphones and the cameras and things like that was kind of an extension thereof. But now being able to create content at a bit more of a scale and being able to put it in there, and even just the way that we communicate, as much as our podcasts feel like a conversation, it's still, there's an art, I think, that is very much a learned skill in how do we have a conversation that keeps going, how do we keep a 40-minute conversation with any undue lulls where we feel like it's consistent and both of us are involved and engaged. And one of the things that we've gotten a lot of good feedback on about our podcast is that we tend to have a really good dynamic and the conversation seems to flow. But I don't know about you, but that hasn't always felt necessarily that way mid-conversation. There's a lot of hamsters running on wheels in the back of my head of where's the next piece, where's this conversation going to go, because believe it or not, this isn't scripted. and so
I think they know that.
I hope they know that. But
some of the stupid stuff we say.
Oh my gosh. And so I just think that learning a new skill for me is really valuable in that sense. And what I've learned through working on this podcast is, one, it's an opportunity to be curious. It's an opportunity to seek out new information. It's like, for example, for some of our promotional materials, Carlo's been using these really great AI generated photos. Well, Carlo had asked me to create a couple of them, and I just completely fell flat on my face trying to figure out how to navigate using an AI image generator. But again, opportunity to learn, be curious, and in some cases like that one, demonstrate a little bit of humility. The oh shit, I have no idea what I'm doing moment is a really valuable one, especially for dudes like us who have real big egos.
Well, and to be fair, I hit you with that the night before we needed to launch, because my week had gotten away from me and I had everything but the episode description and the photo and the card all picked out. So I was like, Matt, can you please do this? Help! I'm dying. I'm drowning. And you did great. You got us a good image, and I'm happy with that. And I'll show you how the AI image generators work, because that took me a little while to figure out. But I think what you're talking about is this idea of just do the thing. And this was something that kind of I actualized in my brain a couple weeks ago, was just do the thing. Because for a long time, I have wanted to expand my social media presence for a couple of reasons. One, because I do some, of my own content that I wanted to get out there. Two, because my business can benefit from it. But I've always had this very high level of standard for myself. I didn't want to release anything that I felt didn't look and feel high quality and polished. And it kept me from doing a lot of those things that I wanted to in those other areas. And then we started this podcast, and because we were on a release schedule, I had to just do the thing. I had to figure out how to edit it. I had to figure out how to create a podcast. I had to figure out how to do AI image generation. And I feel like the product that we put out is pretty polished. It's pretty good. Could it be better? Always. And I'm always exploring new opportunities. But the sheer idea of just doing it until it was good enough to get out to you guys has excelled all of those other areas for me in a big way that I'm really happy about. So, if there are things you want to do and a skill you want to learn because you have this grand image of the final product of it, don't feel like you have to wait until you're at a skill level to create that quality of product. Just do it. Pick a similar thing in a different field. Pick something that you can get started with, so that you start to learn those skills, because the next thing you know, you will be producing that what you thought you wanted to do. That will be your product, and you'll be like, then at some point you'll excel past that. But it will never happen if you wait until the skill is ready. You have to just do it.
I think so many people are plagued by perfection inertia, right? You prevent yourself from starting because you don't want it to be perfect right out the gate.
You always have the words. You always have the words for it.
And they're all made up on the spot too.
Perfect.
I just redid my professional website, and I sat with it, and I was reasonably happy with it, but I was tweaking things and all sorts of things, and I'm like, what's stopping me from hitting publish on this new updated website? And it was, again, you get caught up in this perfection inertia. You get all the things done, but you stop yourself for fear of it not being good enough. Well, the best thing that you can do is to give yourself an opportunity to get better. And if you choose to do nothing, then you've got no baseline to improve on, right? I don't know if you've noticed this, but every sort of big bureaucracy, whether it's a city or a company or anything, they very rarely come right out and they start something new and they're like, bam, here's a brand new thing. What do? They pilot. They pilot projects. They say, we're going to test this new thing out for a weekend, a month, a year. We're going to gather the results. We're going to review it, evaluate it, and then we're going to decide if we're going to do something about it. Well, the funny thing about that is so many of these pilots just become regular practice, and we find out down the road that thing that we are scared to do actually turns out to be more than good enough, fully functional, and does everything that we want. And I think we mask our fear of actually putting something out into the world by this idea that it has to be perfect. Yeah. And the thing that I had to laugh to myself, and I think it's true for both my website and our podcast, is, the irony of us wanting something to be perfect before it exists is the day that we hit publish on episode 1 or the day that I hit publish on my website, it's not like there's millions of people that are lining out the door to watch it or listen to it, right? No. Or see it. And so you've got the space, you've got the time to go out and iterate and develop and learn. And every time you do it once, it becomes that much easier. And so when you're doing the thing And I love that idea of just do the thing. When you're doing the thing, it just becomes easier to keep that snowball and that momentum rolling. And the one thing that I always think too, and this was what really encouraged me to just start getting better at doing the thing, every single person that I've ever idolized, that I've ever looked up to or considered a mentor, they're not sitting back afraid to do something.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I want to become the people that I idolize, then I need to be doing things too.
Yeah, for sure. I think the greatest example of this is actually, in my life, is my dad. My dad's such an interesting character. My sister believes he doesn't have an inner monologue. So, like, if you talk to yourself in your brain, or you ever hear like your own voice talking to you, that is your inner monologue. My dad says he doesn't have one. So he never has a conversation with himself about, should I do this? Or how did that happen? Or blah, 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 blah. He just thinks and does. And in 2020, they were building, I helped them build a house in 2017, 2018, 2019. And when I say helped them, I ran all the low voltage in the house. I helped my father tile the entire main floor, paint, put up cabinetry, doors, all things I'd never done before. And then the culmination of this was in 2020. He said, I want to do the back patio. I want to pour concrete, and I want to do stamped concrete. Now, if you don't know what stamped concrete is you pour concrete and then you use a flexible stamp to make it look like that concrete is stone or brick or something along that line. And the process of it is you pour the concrete, you flatten it out like normal, you spread this powder, and then you put the stamp. And then like you stand on it and you beat it down and you press that indentation. And you have just enough stamps that you can kind of walk along the concrete while it's done. Never in my life had I done this before, thought about doing this before. My father had never done this before. He'd just watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos. And I remember looking at him and I said, I don't know, Dad, this is a pretty big thing. And it's concrete. If we screw this up, it's permanent. And what he did is he looked at me and he said, Carlo, if we screw it up, we'll tear it up and try again. And it was this moment of like, oh yeah. Like, there isn't some judge that's going to walk in here and say, you did a terrible job but first time doing stamped concrete, you're going to lose your house. We're going to try, and if we mess it up, we'll fix it. And then more recently, there's this moment, I'm currently building a gift for a friend, and I'm not going to say what the gift is because I'm pretty sure I'll have him the gift before this episode comes out. But
you won't mention the friend either.
I won't mention the friend, and I won't mention the gift.
Now everyone's going to be expecting surprise gifts from you.
But I'm making something, and it's the biggest project I've ever 3D printed. It's a culmination of printing that I've done for 2 years, which is filament printing, and resin printing, which I've recently learned. But what I have never done before is combined the two and painted them. So this includes sanding, finishing, painting, dark washing, all sorts of things. And if you're a model maker or you've ever done models, you'll know a lot of those things. I probably have close to 30 hours already in this project. I'll probably have another 10 more before it's done. It needs to be done this week before a big day. And before I started it, I said to myself, I have to do this without it being perfect. I have to be okay with the level that it comes out because it has to be done in a realistic time. If I wait too long, it won't be ready. And I had to be okay with it. And that's honestly one of the hardest things to do, to say, well, that paint didn't quite come out the way I wanted it to. And instead of sanding the whole thing back down and trying again, I just moved on to the next step. And you know what? It's coming out pretty dang cool. And the imperfections in it are almost a calling card to me. Because real life is not perfect. Real life is not perfect. What makes a piece of art genuinely unique are the imperfections. What makes a human being genuinely unique is the way that they smile with one side of their face, or they've got a little mole on their nose, or they've got a birthmark, or they've got wrinkles under their eyes, or whatever. We love people for their imperfections, not their perceived perfection. Right? So both of these opportunities were what I was kind of speaking about, of the double-edged nature of mastery. We all want to be perfect at something, but it's not possible. It's also not real. So if you acknowledge that the imperfections and the mistakes that you make give something more character and more value, you'll stop clinging to that idea of mastery. Because the longer you try to master something, the better you will become with it. Right? Like, I've become a significantly better 3D modeler than I ever was a year ago. And a year from now, I'll be better than I am now. But if you cling to the idea of being perfect, it's going to keep me from learning anything else that I want to learn. There's other directions I can go with many other things in my life. But if I'm so focused on becoming perfect with 3D modeling, I will miss out on all the other things that I want to do.
And I think that the pursuit of perfection is one that is ill-placed. I think the idea of perfection is very, very naive. I think that anybody who thinks that they can achieve perfection at something is simply just waiting around for someone else to beat them. You know, I think if you talk to any high-level professional athlete or international athlete or anyone who competes in any sort of discipline, athletics or not, I think what they would have you know is that even if they were the best in the world at what they do at that given point in time, they would tell you that there always something to improve. Right? You take the best team and pick a sport, and they've just had the game of their life, and the reporter interviews them after the game, and what do they say? They say some combination of, we worked really well as a group, I followed the game plan that my coaches put in front of me, and we still need to continue to get better. Yeah. Right? These three things are always... So mastery, as you say, becomes a really tricky thing because... but I think both things can be true. I think that we can achieve mastery and still desire to continue to progress. And I think that that's a really, really important thing. I think about the way that we teach kids in schools, and we think about things like literacy, numeracy, even physical literacy, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it's exactly the way it sounds. It's this idea that we continue to develop our physical capacity to participate in different activities of greater and greater complexity. So to say it another way, in order to participate in football, I need to be able to run, jump, hop, catch. I need the agility and the balance to be able to change direction quickly. These are all building block skills that I individually get better at that allows me to be more competent in that activity. Those things are never at an end state. We can achieve mastery, but mastery is always going to be relative to how much we continue to work at something. So I guess what I would ask you then, because I think you're right. Mastery is a double-edged sword. We're never going to achieve perfection in any given thing, but I still do believe that mastery is still something that can be attained.
Sure.
How do you know, or at what point in time do you feel like you have achieved mastery of a given skill? At what point are you comfortable with the knowledge that you've pursued a thing to a place where you are comfortable or competent or proud?
I think the answer to that question is going to require challenging what we define as mastery.
Awesome.
Because in the world that we live in today, there are constantly new techniques and new things. Okay. So if you think about something like, I don't know, pottery. Pottery hasn't really changed in a long time. And if there's somebody that does pottery that's listening to this and there's something like new and exciting about pottery that I don't know about, tell me. I'm intrigued. But pottery, to my knowledge, has not really changed in a very long time. So mastering that, you could eventually learn every skill and every technique and way to make this thing and consider yourself a master. But in the world we live in today, especially with technology-based skills, there's always a new piece of technology coming out, right? So you could say, well, I've learned everything I possibly can, and then the 3D modeling software comes out with an update and they've got a new feature that you now need to learn, right? So I think for me, I would define mastery in today's world when you are at a level that you feel you could teach someone else. Because mastery does not mean knowing every single thing. It means knowing enough of the core to teach someone else how to be good enough at the core.
And I'm smiling for those of you that are listening. I'm smiling right now because that's exactly the same definition that I like to use for mastery. And for me, it doesn't mean that you're the best at a thing, but it means that you are confident enough in yourself that you now have the luxury of going and cheering on somebody to become better than you. And, I think about this a lot with, we've talked about in previous episodes, but I teach this dance fitness program called Dance Play, and not only do I teach it, but I also have the great privilege of training new instructors. And I so desperately want to be able to train new instructors that can go out and be better at it than I am. In the same way that I truly believe that my Dance Play mentor who created the program is one of my biggest cheerleaders and just wants me to go out and absolutely dominate in the way that showcases what she has created, right?
Yeah.
Awesome story about that. This was back in 2015, and this was when I was just learning to become a trainer for her program. And there was this organization up in Whitehorse, Yukon, that wanted to bring the program to Whitehorse. And so these folks from the Yukon sent some of their employees to different trainings, all different places across Western Canada to experience different master trainers. And in the process, they got to experience Melanie, who's the head of the program, myself, and 2 other master trainers with the program. And then they went back and they had conversations amongst themselves, and they said, we want Matt. Well, as it turns out, and to this day this is true, Melanie's never been to Whitehorse, and Mel loves to travel, but to her great credit, I'm still to this day very, very grateful, she very well could have said to these people in Whitehorse, Matt, Matt's not available, by the way, it's my company, I'll come run this course and do this training. But she didn't. She said, you know what, you wanted Matt, we'll send Matt to Whitehorse. And I think that to me, that is what mastery is being so confident in yourself and your own abilities that you're willing to not only teach someone but be the biggest cheerleader that hopefully one day they might be able to supersede your accomplishments.
There's a story that I absolutely love, and I don't know if it's actually true, but it was told to me once.
Like my dad always says, never let truth get in the way of a good story.
And it's supposedly about Henry Ford. So following the war, he was brought in on trial for potentially profiteering on the war, and he was on the stand, and whoever was questioning him said, "Okay, so Tell me, Mr. Ford, why are you the person that runs Ford Motor Company? Like, do you know how to build a car? Do you know how to put together an engine? Do you know how this works? Do you know how that works? And his response was, I don't need to know how to do those things. I have a box on my desk that has buttons for all of the people that do. I just became really good at surrounding myself with people that were better than me. And, you know, this may be a little bit off the topic, but it's the idea of the best place to learn new skills is going to be from those people that are approaching mastery, right? And it saddens me that we have kind of lost, for the majority of the populace, we've lost the idea of the apprentice and the master, right? Like you see a lot of it still in trades. But it used to be that as a young man, you would go out and you would valet for someone. And this person would teach you what being a man was, and this, and, you know, the tricks of his trade and all those sorts of things. And it saddens me that we don't have that anymore. But it excites me because that valet, that apprentice would only ever learn the skill set of his master. We live in a world today where that every skill set is available from everyone on the internet, sometimes for free. So if you want to learn a new skill, consume the content of the masters, right? It doesn't matter what you want to learn. It is out there for you. And sometimes it's free and sometimes it isn't, but it's there for you. So I think the world of skill learning and the world of mastery has become much larger than it ever was before.
Hit that word. Do it. I know you want
Infinitesimally?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Infinitesimally grander than it ever was before. Thank you for encouraging me to do that.
It's like really going after that high note in a Whitney song.
I'm not...
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. There was a lot of singing in your class today. It was great. Your mom was all over it. So, yeah, like, to me, that whole story of Henry Ford is just a reminder that, like, you don't have to be good at everything. You really don't. You just need to know how to find the information that will allow you to be good at what you're focusing on right now.
See, and I think that while I agree with you, I think you're also downplaying the fact that in and of itself is a skill.
Oh, no, not at all.
You and I have talked, and you've tried painstakingly to teach me how to write proper prompts, you know, going back to our AI conversation. But like the ability to seek out and find information that you're looking for is also a skill too. Mm-hmm. I think that you're right. I think that it's really cool to live in a world now where we have the privilege to not simply apprentice at something and try to be in pursuit of mastery of a particular thing for our entire lives. Certainly, there's some people that still do that, particularly think about Eastern cultures, I guess, in my mind, thinking about the classic street food vendors in Southeast Asia that they have these Michelin starred street food places that just spend their entire life perfecting just one specific type of soup, right? That's the kind of thing that I think is really neat. But by and large, in our Western society, we do have this privilege, this ability to seek out, pursue, and achieve different sorts of things.
Yeah.
Having said that, learning new skills and that seeking of mastery can be really hard. Mm-hmm. It can be intimidating. And, you know, I think that as really ego-driven beings, we as humans really can put ourselves in a position of disadvantage if we're always seeking to learn, because we can never feel like we're reaching those heights.
Yeah.
And so something that I worry about with people that are close to me is whenever they are constantly picking up and learning something new, and then they never get to experience what it feels like to have achieved a sense of mastery where your confidence in a skill is on another level. And so for me, what I've learned is so important is to always have things in my life that I do just because I'm great at them. Do things because I feel like I have achieved mastery. Again, not to say I'm perfect, not to say that I'm the best, but there's a certain level of confidence and endorphin rush that you get by doing a thing that you're great at. And what I find for me is that when I'm able to balance that with learning the new things and practicing the things that are really new to me that I'm not great at, and then I then go and fall on my face in doing so, one balances and complements the other. I get the energy from the things that I'm great at to go and literally fall on my face doing the thing that I'm not good at, which in turn gives me the humility to appreciate the path that I've gone on to achieve mastery in the thing that I am good at. And the example that I use in that is surfing. I've surfed 4 times now, all different places of the world, and let me tell you, it doesn't matter whether it's like Hawaii or Costa Rica or San Diego. I'm quickly realizing that I've never surfed in the Atlantic. Anyway, I
to the Atlantic.
I suck at. We are talking about a Mexico trip in December.
We are.
Maybe. I suck at surfing. Not to say I'm not trying, not to absolve myself of putting forward the effort, but like every time I have the opportunity to, I go surfing. And it was you, I think, that asked me, like, why the hell would you subject yourself to just falling off of a surfboard into the ocean for an hour, hour and a half? It's because I feel like there's great value in putting myself in experiences that allow me to experience that humility so that I can then further appreciate the things that I think I'm great at. So my question to you then, how do you balance the things that you have achieved some sense of mastery over with the things that you're learning? Like, what does that scale look like to you?
I think that has come kind of naturally to me, because the things that I have found quote unquote mastery in, I find passion in. And because of that, I incorporate them into my life. So a good example of this is that I didn't actually do a lot of public speaking or speaking like this, higher law thinking is what I refer to it, until I was asked by a mentor at my office to launch our weekly meetings with a short motivational speech. We used to like watch a video off of YouTube, and then he's like, you know what, Carlo, I think you could do this better. I want you to do it. And every week for 6 months, I would launch our meetings. And sometimes I had something prepared and it was great. And sometimes I had, nothing prepared and it was garbage, or something I thought would be great turned out not to be great, because I didn't script anything. This is the topic I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about it from my heart, just like we do this podcast. And when I came out of it, I realized how much I loved it. And I realized how much confidence it instilled in me. And since then, I have continued to do it through my own personal content, through this podcast, through speaking with regular people. I found passion in it. And I'm not saying I'm a master at it, but I'm saying I have a mastery enough to know that that's a key part of my life. And there are other things in my life that are similar to that. Because of that, they have become regular places, regular fixtures of my activity in life. So when I'm staring at something that I don't know how to do, to me it is considered an extra. It's not, hey, I'm so busy I can't learn this new skill because I'm busy doing all of the skills I already have. It's, I have my life, and I have the new thing I want to learn. And like I said before, I find a way to commit that hour a day or that couple hours a week to learn that new skill.
I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that one takeaway if someone listening to this is really, struggling with either picking up a new skill or learning to let go of the skill that they know they're great at and trying to start something new, what would you suggest?
I can't drive this home enough. Give the hour. Give yourself the hour every day. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not easy sometimes, especially if you have kids, if you career, side hustle, whatever. Life is life. It's busy. I get it. But give yourself the hour, and I promise you will end up spending more than that hour, because you will find value in it and you will love it. And you know what? If you don't, then you know that's not a skill you need to commit to, and you'll find something else.
Pause for a second and back up, just in case somebody glossed over that part of the episode. What do you want them to do in that hour?
Oh, I want you to commit that hour to learning a new skill, to spending time on a project in that skill set area. Just give yourself an hour every single day for you to do it. And it could be reading about it. It could be watching a YouTube video about it. It could be actually doing it. Yep. It doesn't matter. But as long as it's on that skill, I cannot emphasize enough how quickly that will allow you to learn. Because we all want to learn a new skill, but you have to invest the time in it.
Yeah.
And we keep going, well, I'll learn that. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to learn that. But you will never actually learn it until you commit the time to learn it.
That's right.
What about you? What would you say?
Yeah, for me, I think that, again, it's about that balance and appreciating what you're great at, what you're learning, and what you haven't started yet. So I would encourage all of you to get a piece of paper, split it into 3 columns. In the first column, you're going to write down all the things that you wanted to learn, whether it's playing the saxophone, picking up running, learning to fence, like whatever that is, whether it's, fence walls or fence swords, whatever. And then the second column is going to be the things that you're actively learning, the things like websites and podcasts that, you're doing, but you don't feel like you're great at yet. And then in the right-hand column, write down the things that you kick ass at. And I guarantee you this is going to be the hardest list for you to write, because every single one of us always undervalues the things that we're great at. And so it's going to be very hard for all of you to articulate the things that you have some sense of mastery in your own life. And here's the important part. Once you've got those 3 things, yes, dedicate an hour to the new things, but make sure that you are dedicating time on a weekly or a monthly basis to all 3 categories. It can be incredibly defeating to spend your time exclusively in that space of the things that you aren't comfortable with yet. And it can be really artificially inflating of your ego if you only do the things that you're great at and you're not investing, continuing to learn and develop.
That's such a great point. Such a great point. All right. I think we're going to start bringing this episode to a close. And I think I'm going to move into my gratitude, because it is very pertinent to what you just said. My gratitude for you right now is that you have this amazing ability to take a call to action and make it into an exercise. And you do this all the time, both in the podcast, in our regular conversations and everything. It's, here's this thought that's articulated and this action that you need to do, and you find a way to very quickly turn it into an activity that drives that point home, and it's accessible. It's not something that's going to require a whole bunch of time and material and money investment to do. It's grab a sheet of paper, write down the 3 columns, boom. And you have such a knack for it. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Something that I'm really grateful and really just in awe of you for is, and it's similar to your sister's comment, you're the person that does the things that everyone else is like, one day I'm going to. Like, you wanted to learn how to 3D print, so you sourced a 3D printer, bought a 3D printer, taught yourself to the appropriate programming to be able to use the 3D printer. So many people will either sit in the one day I'll do this, or they buy the thing and then it collects dust. And you go out and you do it, whether it's creating custom shelving and furniture for your house, working on the fencing in your backyard, whether it's working on your vehicle or the 3D printing itself. You're always the person who takes the one day I'll do this and you turn it into reality.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just having a giddy little moment. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of the journey of us learning a new skill, because that's really what this is in a lot of different ways. And we've never said that we were going to put out a perfect podcast. We never thought that our social media would be perfect. We're experimenting, we're trying new ideas, we're learning new skills as we go. And we're happy that you're along for the ride and for that whole process. And we're going to continue to get better and provide some more value for people. So learn the skill, guys. Like this is your call to action for today. Go do it. There's that thing that you've always wanted to learn. Now's the time.
Go do the damn thing.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the Men in Community podcast. You can find us on all of your social medias. Please go on there, follow and like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, YouTube Shorts, the whole shebang.
And Discord.
Please join the Discord group and chat about this episode on there. We want to hear what your skill is that you're going to learn. Who knows? Maybe somebody else in the community already knows how to do it, and they will help teach you how to master it.
Love it. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.